Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist. And can I say that this was a more entertaining episode than I ever would have expected for a limousine episode for all of the wrong reasons.
Are you serious? Are we watching the same thing?
So I have to say, I had this cool little intro planned all the way from last week, and I was waiting all week, just perfecting it in my mind, just talking it through. And then this episode came about, and it was such an unbelievable train wreck disaster that I just had to abort my original plan and I put on my purple shirt in favor of Jen. In her whole purple theme thing. So here's the issue I have. The whole episode, I was thinking about Maria and who's that guy that you like that never became the Bachelor? Tyler Cameron. I spent the whole episode thinking about Tyler Cameron and thinking about Maria.
I think about Tyler Cameron a lot too.
Okay, we can talk about that later. The reason is, you've often said that the reason that they didn't want to be the Bachelor and the Bachelorette are because they didn't want their reputations or their images to be degraded in some way, shape, or form. And
it can only go down from there.
Only go down. And I adore Jen. And this episode did not raise my opinion of Jen. First off, we find out she's from Boston. Now, as somebody from Massachusetts, I can say I'll never date anybody from Massachusetts ever. That's a hard no, hard pass for me. I was excited. I heard she's from Miami. Now that's a place to pick up a young lady that's marriage material. Boston, not a place to find a wife. Let me just tell you that from personal experience.
Before you go further on what I can only imagine is going to be a rant, can we just, do our intro and tell people what it is that we're talking about?
We are going to talk about the great train wreck disaster of 2024.
In other words, we are here talking about Jen Tran season of The Bachelorette, season 21 of The Bachelorette. And we're coming at it from my therapist perspective, your non-therapist perspective, but our shared perspective, opinion, lens as me who understands a lot about relationships from a professional standpoint, but also as someone who's been in one with you for 16 years.
And I give my perception as somebody who just happens to be great at the whole relationship thing.
So
your parents tell me all the time, I'm a wonderful partner for you.
You are. You're a wonderful husband.
Yeah. See, so I got
You got some
fans.
credibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
They stand me. Did I use that right?
I don't know if that's still a thing.
Oh, okay.
But we are going to be each week talking about Jen's season. We're going to be talking about dynamics that stick out to us. We're going to be talking about impressions that we get, especially tonight. Speaking of first impression roses and whatnot. So all throughout the season, we're going to be sharing our insights, our ideas, our opinions. And I think I know I mentioned it on our last episode, our preseason episode, but I love to start each season with a bit of a disclaimer that while I'm a therapist, I am not doing any assessment of anyone from a clinical perspective. Like, I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm giving my clinical perspective on what's playing out on a very edited TV show, but I'm not actually assessing or diagnosing people. These are in the way that we are viewing them. They are characters on a TV show. There's no way that we can get like a fully formed idea of any of these individuals off the show based on what we see. So I just want to kick the season off with that disclaimer.
Yeah, not me. I'm judging the shit out of these animals.
Animals, is that how they seem to you, all these men?
Oh my God. You know what? If I could summarize in one statement this season, it's high school. Everything felt young. Everything felt childish. Everything felt immature.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a concern that we had about Jen when we talked about her being picked for The Bachelorette several times throughout the last couple of months. And that was, what kind of Bachelorette was she going to be? And she led with the shot o'clock. And you had said it while we were watching the show. You're getting what you asked for.
Mm-hmm.
You asked for a bunch of immature, rambunctious individuals that like adventure, and that's what you got.
Yeah. How many of the men talked about them being adrenaline junkies and things like that? I mean, yeah, you took the words literally out of my mouth and saying that Jen got what she asked for. She set the tone for what her season would be and what kind of men should show up for her. And that's exactly what she got. So
with the exception of one all-star.
Yes, your favorite.
Yeah. I mean, should be everybody's favorite, but we'll get to that after.
Yeah.
So keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, I was just more saying that Jen put out there what it is that she was looking for, and that's what she is receiving. And I think we can get into this further, of course, and I imagine we will throughout the season. But like, that's something when we are in relationships or wanting to date, we really need to be mindful of is what we are communicating, whether that's overtly or covertly about what it is that we're ready for, what it is that we are looking for. I don't know that any of these men, well, there are some men.
Hey, Max.
Got a little cameo here. I don't know how many of these men or how many of these people, if I'm including Jen, are actually ready to settle down and get married based on just what we've seen.
So my first question for you is, we've now seen 2 hours of Jen as the Bachelorette. So what are your initial impressions? What do we think she's doing well? What do we think she's not doing well? What does she have to look out for? What kind of men, we've already kind of touched on it, what kind of men is she attracting? Are these going to be men that are going to be good for her? Give me your take.
Question to your question.
That's like you're actually, that is like thing one you're not supposed to do in a conversation.
Well, I want to clarify that are we also including in the 2 hours we've seen of Jen as a Bachelorette the teaser?
Of course, yeah. All material since she's been announced is fair game.
Yeah, well, one big emphasis in the teaser that we also saw a hint at in this first episode was Jen talking about how she picks the wrong men. We had seen her express to the camera, which we learned last season is an ITM, not a face to camera, but an ITM. Thank you, audience, for correcting me. In an ITM, she had been talking about Grant and said that he's the kind of guy that she would typically go for. And Grant is a walking red flag.
My notes were not kind to Grant. No.
Yeah. And so she got saved by the bell when she was about to kiss that man.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing appealing about Grant. If you are a young lady out there and you sat there and said, man, I wish I could get a date with Grant, I strongly advise you, ask yourself why. Because that is not a man who's going to A, treat you well, or B, be there for you or care about you. That is a man who is very narcissistic and is clout chasing. It's very obvious. As a man, trust me, that is not somebody that is going to be there for you in the late hours of the night when you are undergoing an emergency.
Okay. So
you know who he reminds me of? That Pod show when they had the cheerleader
Love is Blind.
That one, and there was a cheerleader girl
Yep.
who picked the douchey guy.
Uh-huh.
He reminds me a lot of that guy.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I know who you're saying, who you're talking about.
Her name was like a AK. Was
AD.
AD. It's AD. Yeah. AD and Cliff or something.
Clay?
Clay. Yeah, Clay. There we go. We got there, people. We got there. Clay and AD reminds me a lot of Clay.
Yeah, I could see that. But what you're doing is what I said that I will not be doing. You're calling him a narcissist. We talk all the time on this show about how those terms are so widely overutilized. You're also making gross generalizations about his character based on, I don't know, probably a minute collectively in TV. Can you be more specific? What to you feels like, what narcissistic traits are you seeing? What makes you feel like he would be a bad partner? For any woman. You're not even saying for Jen, for any woman.
That's a great question. I'm a man and I can smell my own. All right. You know,
that's a horrible answer.
You know what? But the men who watch this will understand, right? You know, I mean, it's fair. It's a fair question to send back to me. What I would say is that I have a lot of experience interacting with a lot of men of very, very wide variance of quality, I would say. And there are just behavioral tics and patterns that you witness and observe, the way they interact, the things they care about, the way they present themselves, the way they walk into a room. There are just certain things that you just spot a mile away, and some of it is hard to describe. It's just you see it and you just sort of just know. It's an intuition that somebody like you would be able to probably articulate better because you're trained at that. Whereas me, it just, yeah, I've seen this guy a million times. I've seen him a million times. I not going to be okay with my sister, not my non-existent sister, dating Grant.
Okay. Well, we'll get into more of the specifics of the men in a few. But going back to Jen, so that's one thing that I'm concerned about is that she proclaims that she picks the wrong guy. We see some tendency perhaps to do that, to be attracted to men that might not be ready for what she's looking for. Jen also seems incredibly insecure, and whether that's insecure in her role as the Bachelorette, and which understandable for so many reasons, or insecure in life. She also has talked about on The Bachelor and here that she didn't have a healthy relationship model to her by her parents, and so she doesn't really know what that looks like, and so that can definitely impact her picker, so to speak. And Jen seems very influenced by external validation.
That was, I think, the number one thing for me after, kind of the just general immaturity of the episode, is that she really likes a compliment and really responds to a compliment in a way that, you got to question, is all you have to do is throw a compliment and you're going to make her happy? Like that is not sustainable long term.
She says that she is looking for a ferocious type of love. As a man, what does that mean to you? How does that translate? And what do you internalize that to mean in terms of how you need to be showing up?
That's a really great question. So the word ferocious, right? I think the natural connotation to that is like, wild, feral, like you're willing to fight for it. You're willing to, somebody, I think it was Sam used the term reckless. And she's like, I love that term reckless. And that's kind of the sense that I'm getting from her. Her using the term ferocious love, I don't have a problem with. When she agreed with Sam about reckless love, that again steps back a little bit and we come back to the maturity of a 20-something-year-old. The last thing I want is reckless love. Love is not inherently reckless. It's the opposite of reckless. It's finding safety in and security. Reckless love is almost the opposite of, like, reckless is the opposite of love in many ways. And so I need more clarification about what she wants, because to me, it sounds like what she wants is physical attraction. She wants that, physical chemistry and that fun stuff. The lust. Yeah, exactly. But that's not love. Love is being there for somebody.
Safety, security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Being there, at 3 a.m., when they're sick, going to the store for them and doing all the picking up the prescriptions and stuff like that when they can't go themselves, and cooking them soup and stuff like that. That's what love is. Love is not reckless. And so I got some concerns about the understanding of love. Now, let me just say, I am all about like lustful, like that attraction, right? And that like, this person is so attractive and I'm so turned on by this person, I just want to be around. That is a wonderful thing. But that is a wonderful thing if that person also is going to be your safety and your security over the long haul.
Right. That alone, the flame burns out quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I found so interesting about the word choice is, again, when said to a group of men, my automatic thought is like, okay, they're going to throw down for a competition. Like it felt like it just hit at that like male primal ego that was definitely in the room tonight.
Oh yeah. I obviously have not been around for a Bachelorette. This is my first one. So I've now seen Golden Bachelor and a regular Bachelor and a Bachelor in Paradise. And all of them, you saw, a little bit of cattiness in the Bachelor season. Very little cattiness in the Bachelorette. I'm sorry, in the Golden Bachelor. So I was expecting a little bit more aggressiveness I could have, I think I was probably expecting a little bit more than we actually got, but the targeted aggressiveness tonight, I actually thought was interesting specifically the Brian Jeremy interaction. That was like straight up aggression. Like that was like, I'm calling you out right now, getting in your face, to the point where it was actually uncomfortable. And I can't imagine what Jen was sitting there thinking.
Literally right in between them.
Yeah. So I was kind of expecting a little bit more for the first episode, a little more subtle aggression, a little more jockeying, a lot of what you saw Grant do, where, I'm the man, I'm taking this down, that type of stuff, like trying to
intimidate in a way.
Well, no. It's identifying the alpha in the room, right? And so what you'll typically see with male behavior when you get into the room is two things will typically happen. You will have the coalesce point, where usually men will coalesce around two types of personalities. And that's going to be the kind of alpha male figure, or they're going to, or depending on the situation, they will coalesce around somebody that's more of like, directs the target, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be the alpha male, but the person who's going to be walk into the room and sort of direct everybody and point everybody in the same direction in sort of that charismatic leader style. Sometimes it could be an alpha. Sometimes it could be like, it could be a jokester kind. But those are two types. And so I was expecting to see more of that dynamic at play. You did definitely see some of the people jockeying for the alpha male status, but you definitely didn't see anybody in that other type of leadership role. And so the Jeremy Brian interaction was noteworthy because that typically happens in male circles after you've already identified kind of who the alphas are and who the kind of the leadership structure is. And that's usually in response to sort of notch yourself up subconsciously throughout the ranks, right? And a lot of this is all subconscious, right? This is just how men behave over hundreds of thousands of years of anthropological, evolution. And I was a little shocked that I felt like we skipped steps, Anyway, not to go on too long about all of that, but it definitely felt like we skipped some steps there.
So let's move on to the men. I don't think that it's necessary to go through the limo entrances one by one, but
there's only 2 or 3 people I think are worth talking about.
Yeah, who stuck out to you?
Well, you want to go with people we stuck out for positive reasons or negative reasons?
Either way.
All right. Grant, I think, is an easy one to talk about. Everything about him was kind of a turnoff. Just
the beatboxing,
the beatboxing, the whole thing I thought was just a miss. The broiness, it was cringy. There were a lot of cringy entrances. And his was just sort of like the first big cringy entrance. And then he just kind of perpetuated it. He feels to me like he's going to stick around because he's the type of guy that Jen would typically pick according to her. And the producers are going to want him in the house for a while because he is so alpha that he's only, a few seconds away at any point in time of getting into it with somebody. Yeah. So I think he goes deep and he doesn't go deep for positive reasons. What about you? Who somebody that stuck out noteworthy in a negative way?
I don't know that it's necessarily negative. I guess that's up for debate. But Jonathan, the love-sick patient, the guy that got wheeled in on a stretcher with his face bandaged and he was wearing a hospital gown, nothing else. It's debatable whether this was a negative impression, a positive impression, just an impactful impression. There's a lot here. Total risk, but it was a friggin' power play for the guys because he had the men talking about him all night.
Yep.
All night.
Yeah, I thought it was a huge risk. It could have gone a lot of different directions. I kind of thought early on that Jen was not going to be into this. I don't know. He pulled it off. It was interesting for me, but I think it definitely was a win for him. I think it was successful. I think he's going to go decently far. Made a good impression.
He made an impression. Yeah.
And I think that's when there's 25 people and you got a handful of hours, you get a quick introduction. making an impression is important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the worst thing that can happen is you could just literally just be forgettable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because realistically speaking, and I guess this is a question for you. I've talked about it many times. Men have short-term memories with respect to women. So what will typically happen is if a girl makes a really, you know, bad impression on night one, but then she comes in night two and makes a great impression, men will just flat out forget whatever happened the night before. And so there's something to be said strategically about a show like this where come in and make an impression such that production is going to save you.
So it's not necessarily for Jen. It's for the show.
My question is, that's exactly what women should do for The Bachelor. Come in and make an impression one way or the other. If you are not getting time and you don't feel like there's a connection on night one, or it just hasn't clicked yet, then go pick a fight with somebody, because production will keep you around at that point, and then you can make up for it the next time.
I see what you're saying. Whereas women kind of like get the ick.
Well, the question I have for you is, does a strategy like that work for a Bachelorette? Because it 100% will work for a Bachelor.
You know, there are a lot of women out there, and Jen might be one of them, that see a red flag and think they can paint it green, or like, you know, I can fix him kind of mentality. And so, you know, some like while there is, as I just referenced, the ick that can happen where like an immediate turnoff can occur and a woman is out. I don't know how much I believe in the ick, but like that's a thing that women do talk about of a particular age as well. But I do think that women do tend to consider more factors than just one typically. And they'll usually be in it with someone to try to suss things out, to make things work. So I don't know. It might be a similar strategy than what you're as what you're describing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to a guy that I really adored. In fact, my mythological sister, I would hope that she would bring a guy like this home. A patriot, good-looking guy, on the older end, mature. What I really liked about Marcus was that in his introduction, within a few short sentences, he was able to definitively express that, 1, I'm mature. 2, I understand responsibility. 3, I understand loyalty, and I have tremendous loyalty. And 4, that I am a consistent individual, right? Who's understands commitment and is has a history of being committed. He did 6 tours overseas, right? I mean, he gave you every green flag that you could ask for. What is it that you want if you're looking for a relationship? Loyalty, commitment, right? I mean, he's already demonstrated this, right? And he's a good-looking guy on top of that. And not to mention, financially speaking, he's a vet. Great benefits, right? Tremendous benefits coming off of that. I mean, I can't imagine why any woman wouldn't immediately put him on the list of he needs to be somebody that I, vet that I take a shot with.
Yeah.
What box didn't he check would be my question to any woman who didn't like Marcus.
He was incredible. I loved that we started the season with him.
Yeah. It was all downhill after that.
He was really great. And a lot can change between now and the end of the season. But if he doesn't win the Bachelorette rather, I think he could make a great Bachelor. We've never really had somebody like him. Just such strong values. Like we don't see that very much anymore on this show. And
in
so
general,
it would be interesting to see that play out. But yeah, I really liked him too. And I found myself comparing every man that came out of the limo after him to Marcus. And no one quite measured up. Except, in a different way, Sam M, who, spoiler, got the first impression rose, but he also had same but different kind of character to him.
Yeah, I liked Sam M as well. Obviously Jen liked him. There was something about him. There was a certain kind of genuineness to him. And we see some trailers for upcoming episodes where people are kind of shit talking him a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, it's also a teaser. Who knows?
Yeah, the way those things. I will say the people who do the editing of the teasers of this show are really talented at misdirection.
Yeah,
like that is one thing in particular. But yeah, I liked Sam M. He seemed genuine. There was just something like honest about him. It just felt. We'll see how it plays out and develops. And another good-looking guy as well.
One thing that I really liked about Sam M that has come up in conversations around dating that I often talk about, particularly when men are dating, is that he found the balance between being respectful, but still being physically affectionate and not putting himself in the friend zone. If you noticed, he put his hand on her knee right off the bat, basically. And the camera kept directing us there. And the thing that I really like about that, and I've said this on this podcast before, like it is really challenging to be a man dating right now for a lot of reasons. I mean, challenging for all of us. I'm not trying to just, woe is men or anything. But I think men are wanting to be respectful, wanting to think about consent, wanting to think about all these things to make a woman feel comfortable and also not get in trouble, so to speak. And so what that has done for especially younger men in dating is it's caused them to be way more timid and way more hesitant. And they find themselves more often than not kind of in the friend zone because kind of broaching that, especially physical line comes off as, maybe aggressive or predatory or whatever, their worst fear. And so a lot of the men that I work with have this problem, this struggle of like, I keep going on first and second dates and they keep telling me what a great guy I am, and that they just want to be friends. And that tends to be a big reason why. And so I just thought it was a nice way to demonstrate how you can do both, how you can be respectful while still getting to know someone and show an interest that you are attracted to someone. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Thomas did that as well. I actually caught that as well, and I thought it was a good move. When I was a young single man, I discovered relatively early on that you don't have to get gropey, but like a touch. A touch on the arm, a touch on the shoulder. It really, I was a small of the back kind of guy.
Obviously read the room.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, read the room. But like, if things are going well and there's an opportunity, it's not just like, hey, but like, that physical touch goes a very long way. And it's definitely advisable. But I agree with you. I mean, one of the big problems you have, and look at social media now. The amount of girls out there who are basically, for lack of a better word, entrapping a bunch of men to post up videos about how they're, men are pigs that are just staring at them all day long, and the gym videos you see and stuff. It's like men see these TikToks too. They're not just women that are looking at these TikToks, and men are just kind of fed up with it, and
don't want to put themselves.
They don't want to put themselves. They don't want to be the person who's going to have the TikTok made about them. So you know what? Unless you are, and this is what I think a lot of women don't understand when they're doing things like that, is that there is a value proposition that happens in our minds whenever we're deciding, are we going to do something? And if your value proposition is well calibrated, you're saying to yourself, what is it that I want? What's the value of what I want? And what is the risk of me attempting to get it and not getting it? Or even if I do get it, what is the risk? And when so many women have done these like videos and put men on blast for, in a lot of cases, doing almost next to nothing, right? What happens is that you've skewed the value proposition such that unless you are an amazingly attractive woman, men are it's just not worth the value anymore, right? You have to be absolutely top-notch amazing for most men to sit there and say, yeah, I'm going to take the shot of having myself put on blast for being a creep. And it's really sad because it's messing with the entire dating scene.
So you had you've said that this is your first Bachelorette season, and so this is really your first time seeing the men and the way that they behave. One thing that has been somewhat conjectured on, criticized about, has been the way that the men have shown up, especially recently in seasons, where they're very aware that this is a TV show and very aware of what an edit can be and very aware of social media and the talking points that can come up. And so we've seen, I would say, well-behaved men, but I mean that in a critical way. I mean that in they're performative, inauthentic, and we're seeing not any sort of reality in reality TV. And I think that really speaks to, again, this idea of, most people, I won't just say men, in these dating situations, given the way that our world is set up right now, we are so aware of what can end up online, and what the perception of us can be at any moment. And so I think that causes us to edit ourselves, which in some ways is not a bad thing. Like from a psychological perspective, that can be considered our super ego, right? Like our governing principle, our judge, the wisdom. But it becomes over edited, and then we lose our authenticity. And so this seeing the men engage this way with Jen and with one another was kind of nice to kind of see a little bit of a callback to people just being a little bit more genuine and themselves, even if it's just the touch on the knee. Mm-hmm. And it also reminded me of Gary and Teresa. If you recall, Teresa put her hand on Gary's shoulder and their first night out, and what meaning that had. And the same can be true in reverse, that, a man can do that, to a woman, put a hand kind of on her knee, which is where it was, not on her thigh, on her knee, and still communicate something similar.
Round 2, it was on that thigh. It was damn close to her behind
as Jen put it, they experienced a feral kiss.
Yes, and that was there was no question that
he was holding back.
He was holding back. So I agree with everything you just said. But what I will say is they are still on their best behavior.
Of course they are.
And there is still a lot of performativeness. And you even saw it when Sam got the first impression rose and she went in for the kiss and the whole thing. And that was such a high school makeout session on the couch after school is what it felt like. The whole thing with her, the way she was laid back, the whole thing. And you could just tell he was like, okay, let me figure out how aggressive I can get here. Before I'm going to start, getting, things in the comments.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, it's still ABC.
Yeah.
It's still like, your family's watching, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So of course, you got to keep
there's still some good behavior going on. I would say pretty significant good behavior. I don't know. I haven't seen prior seasons. I would say that this was overwhelmingly, it felt like the guys were generally on better behavior than I would expect if there weren't cameras on.
Yeah. I guess there's one more guy I want to talk about, and then I want to move us into the cocktail party.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the other Sam N, who also had a cringy entrance, but he was the 25-year-old guy, the nice eyelashes. He said probably 7 times that he's a love virgin. So he's never been in love, never had a girlfriend. And his whole rationale is that the first girlfriend I have is going to be my wife.
Talk about putting pressure on a situation that is already filled to the brim with pressure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Red flags everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm a traditional individual. I am a firm believer that if you're going to date, you should be dating with intention, and that intention does not necessarily have to be to get married, but there should be intentionality to it, right? When I was a young man, I was dating not to get married necessarily, but to identify the characteristics that I did not want in a partner. I wasn't looking to find the perfect person. I found her anyways. But there was intentionality there, right? I applaud anybody who dates with the intentionality of saying, especially for men, I'm dating with the expectation that I'm looking to find my wife. I think that is laudable. I think that is wonderful. However, the first girlfriend that I date is going to be my wife is a little bit beyond laudable and into the land of not well thought out. And like you have to identify values.
Right.
You at 20, like this isn't 100 years ago where at 15 you knew what your value system was. At 20, 25, 30, a lot of people have not yet identified what their value systems are. So to suggest that you're just going to be able to identify that without actually dating somebody, without, spending enough time with that person individually, and that I'm going to know who I want to marry, and this is going to be my girlfriend, and she's going to flow right into being my wife is, and I know you don't like to use the term crazy, but it is actually crazy. Like it's not coherent.
Yeah. I mean, you're right on in saying puts a lot of pressure on the situation, just so unrealistic of an expectation. And so it's a total talk about red flag, like definite red flag here. You keep him around a little bit, but he's not ready.
No. I mean, look, it is hard in this day and age, in this society, to find somebody that is going to share your values. Especially, if you're out in LA, good luck to you. It's even probably harder. But yeah, I just think that I applaud him for his commitment and for dating with intentionality and for dating for marriage. I think that's really hard to do, and that's really something that I applaud him for. But I think he needs to get a little bit more realistic and realize that he's not going to marry the first girl that he dates and have that lead to a particularly happy marriage.
Yeah. It's a very all or nothing mindset.
Yeah. Date with intentionality, figure out what your values are, figure out what your deal breakers are, and find your match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's move into the cocktail party.
Sure.
And, there might be some other men that we want to talk about here as well, but there is one interaction that we need to talk about. You had referenced it at the top of our episode, and that is the car debacle, the car key debacle.
Can I just point out, when Jeremy threw the keys to Jesse and treated him like a valet, power move. Loved it. I mean, just loved every part of that.
You thought that happened in real time? I just assumed it was edited.
So actually, I have never seen Jesse, and maybe it's because I haven't seen a Bachelorette season, but I've never seen Jesse used as a prop the way he was used tonight. And that was actually not to get too far ahead, but for Rose and Thorns, like Jesse being used as a prop, high on my list of potential roses for the week. I mean, between the puppies, between being treated like a valet, like the whole thing all night long was really comical. I love to see him more incorporated, not just bounce in, say 2 words, bounce out, come in. Hey, there's one more rose. Yeah, no kidding, dude. Off he goes. Like it was great to see him involved in the episode. Power move, throwing the keys and treating him like a valet. Yes, it was probably staged, but there was a lot of stuff that was staged this evening.
They also made us, or led us to believe that was Jeremy's actual vehicle that he shipped in from New York. Now, I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Seems unlikely, yeah.
Because speaking of props, like that's typically something that like the art department or production.
They go rent one for the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have a Miami office. We know, like, we see these cars driving around Miami all the time. None of them are owned by the people. They get rented, a week at a time, and these people drive them around. And yeah, it's a.
But as an aside, I know we're going to talk about the interaction there. But for me, like, talk about. I mean, he called it out right from the get go. They say guys with cars like this are overcompensating for something. He comes right out, and I think we're led to believe that he says, "I do have a really big."
Can we say that on YouTube? Well, I don't keep saying it. If I got to edit it, I'll have to.
Well, you can bleep me out like they bleeped him out.
What I'm saying is every time you say it might be another bleep. You're increasing my edit time. That's all right. You say whatever you want to say.
But he's like clearly trying to have some sort of persona as a guy that's, moved to New York City because like that's what you do. And now he's a real estate investor and he's like got these nice cars. Like he's clearly
He's putting on a persona. Yeah.
Putting on a persona here.
Yeah. And he's trying to be a bit comedic, but also come off as kind of a, a bit of a rough side. I personally don't think any of it works. Also, hated his suit. I thought his suit was ghastly, right? And I have little to no fashion sense. And so if I think some guy looks terrible, that's either they look amazing or they look really bad. There's no in between. Yeah, I think that it's all a persona. I agree with you. We are in Connecticut right outside. I work in Manhattan. I, see all of this.
You're also a real estate investor.
I'm also a real estate investor. Yes. So yeah, like this is my crowd, right? The Connecticut guy who works in Manhattan and is in real estate. I know the crowd. You see a lot of this kind of behavior that, the posturing is a good word. Yeah. You see a lot of that. I drive a Hyundai, that tells you where my ego is in comparison to Jeremy, right? Now, I don't just want to bash on Jeremy because I do want to point out that I thought the way that he handled Brian was actually the appropriate thing to do, right? And, go ahead.
I just want to make sure his name's actually Brian.
Yeah, go ahead and check it. Well, while you check it, so here's the thing. So Brian comes up, basically steals the keys, comes up, and he is going to do this power play, try and, basically take Jeremy's car for a ride with Jen in it. Obviously, that was not going to actually happen, but, that's the power play he's going for. And Jeremy, and again, this is kind of a subtle thing, but there's a couple avenues that he has to take here. On the one hand, he can just accept it and move on, right? Where he kind of looks very beta. He could do the alpha thing, which is to basically throw down with them right there and get in his face, and it becomes an altercation, which he also did not do. If he looks beta, then I don't care what women claim on social media they're attracted to. Women are not attracted to betas. If he had just backed down right then and there and did nothing, he's kept around for a production, but Jen's not keeping him after that, right? If he gets in his face and gets alpha, again, that gets embarrassing. You're more likely to get kept around, but it also gets really embarrassing really quickly. And we have a bunch of other opportunities in front of you. You're not going to stick around. What he actually does here is a smart play. And that is he takes his time. He's like, hey, I need more time, whatever. Keeps his cool, lets the other guy continue to hang himself, look like an asshole. And he basically, asks him relatively nicely, give me my keys, let me have them, come on. And he makes the other guy, continually refuse to accept or acknowledge reasonable requests in front of Jen. And then he concedes and walks away at that point. Played it very well, given the situation, right? Whereas he doesn't look beta. He doesn't look like an overly machismo, just going to pop off, but at the same time, causes no altercation. He's not embarrassing. If you're out with this guy, he's going to stand up for you. At the same time, he's not gonna flip out and embarrass you either. Your thoughts? Yeah,
it's tough because I have a natural bias against Jeremy. I just don't like him, and so I was more critical of him in that than you were. But as you laid it out, like, yeah, what were his choices really? He was backed into a corner and
technically backed into a car.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know. I'd be really curious I wish we had an ITM with Jen to kind of know what her experience was like of that. And I'd also be curious to know, did that make her more attracted to Brian? Because there are some women that would feel more attracted to, in that situation, he was more of the alpha.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So in that situation, how do you think I respond?
Not like that.
Not like the way Jeremy did? Well, what would I have been the beta? Would I have been the alpha? Would I have been the Jeremy?
I think you would have been a little more aggressive than Jeremy, but not. Yeah, but you're not. You wouldn't waste your energy in confrontation, in a sense.
Yeah, I would have. I think you're right. I would have handled it a little bit more aggressively, but ultimately, yeah, I'm not going to throw down and embarrass myself or embarrass the person I'm with. That's just not. Yeah. Okay. Who else do we want to talk about during the cocktail hour? Devin had a good run. I was really surprised that he ended up. I kind of thought he was going to be a flash in the pan, but really connected well with her. So I kind of was surprised there. I don't necessarily know if there's a lot to talk about other than I was just surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised too. Big personality. He's definitely a producer pick in some way. I feel like he could also stir the pot quite a bit. I also didn't have like a good first impression of him. I literally wrote strutted up.
Yeah. I hated I thought again, the kind of not well put together suit with the sneakers was just I just didn't like the look at all.
He's a particular type of guy that I just like don't. He's just not for me. But
the loud, boisterous thing, it comes across as really immature and sort of look at me and I'm attention seeking and I just haven't quite matured. Even in the his intro packet, is that we call him, the intro packet itself. Package. I thought the whole package was it just looked like a guy screaming for attention. And so when we, juxtapose that against what we saw with him and Jen one-on-one, I was like, oh, he actually can rein it in a little bit here. So, I thought a little more highly of him. I was surprised to see from the intro package to the one-on-one that dichotomy I thought was pretty stark. And so, we'll see how he goes.
Right. Other person of note that we both liked was Thomas N.
I like Thomas a lot.
Yeah.
For one, they have a shared cultural background. That is relevant.
Right. They're both Vietnamese, both of their, at least
first
their
generation.
mothers.
Yep. First generation.
Vietnam.
The cultural background is huge. They share a language. They share a culture. If you share a culture with somebody, it is a positive correlation that you will probably share certain value structures. There's a lot to be said there. And he seemed like a nice guy, seemed like a genuine guy.
Well, it's not only is it a shared culture of both being Vietnamese, but a shared culture in both having parents that are first generation immigrants.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
And that shared understanding of what it is to have a parent give up their life for their family to have a better life. To understand, again, that kind of sacrifice, loyalty, family, to be able to appreciate what you have because someone that you love gave up a lot for you to have it. So I think that's again, not something that many of us who are, multiple generations in American born of some sort of privilege, like that we can't relate to.
Yeah, I agree. I like Thomas. I hope he goes far. Again, we've seen some edited trailers coming up for prior seasons that seem to imply that he might be a pot stirrer. But as of right now, until I see it on screen, I am high on him and I hope he goes pretty far. And I think that there's, he was my early front runner for the first impression rose. So.
Yeah, no, I liked him.
So I think we've exhausted conversation on the guys, the cocktail hour, and the limo entrances. So first impression rose goes to Sam M. Thought he was in the short list of people that would likely get it. He did. They had a steamy makeout session that was pretty much directed heavily by Jen herself. And then we kind of move on to the rose ceremony.
Just one quick note, and I'd love to see what, if anything, Bachelor Data, that Instagram account, can tell us about this. But this is very rare that the lead only kisses one person on the opening night, as of like more recent seasons. This, used to not be a thing. Like usually the kisses were like few and far between on opening night. But that was notable. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
The other thing, speaking of Bachelor Data, that we did learn from Bachelor Data is that apparently 47% of the recipients of the first impression rose on the Bachelorette season go on to win. So Bachelorettes have been historically better at choosing their winner.
Match. Yeah.
And it's only been
meanwhile
more
with
recent.
the men, it's 4.7%.
Yeah, probably. And it's only more recent that the women have been less good, I guess I'd say, at choosing their person. But so we'll see. That could mean at least that Sam M is in it for a while.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a high percentage. Not necessarily surprising.
Mhm.
And when you look at the way women date versus the way men date, it's not surprising that you would see
Yeah.
a higher percentage of first impression roses go on to win for bachelorettes and them to lose. It's sort of a curse if you're on The Bachelor. It's a huge boon if you're on The Bachelorette.
Mhm.
That's not surprising at all. So yeah, interesting. So rose ceremony. I don't think there was really much of a surprise here. There was a whole bunch of people that we got no time, we with the sommelier guy, the guy with kind of I don't know if it's dread or cornrows. I don't know the proper
Ginger
name.
shot.
Ginger shot guy. Yep. That guy. We just saw nothing with them. So, in these first episodes, you only have so much time, and production, unless somebody's doing something really interesting, you don't see the people that aren't going to make it. And half the time we don't even realize who the people are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it felt like this time. So, seven men went home. We're down to 18. No big surprises in my mind.
No.
Your thoughts?
No big surprises at all. The only big surprises were two, actually. One, that this was not filmed in the Bachelor Mansion. I think it's because it got sold. But if you know why it wasn't filmed at Bachelor Mansion, let us know. And that they're going to Melbourne, Australia next.
That's early, right?
Incredibly.
I mean, normally it's not until we're down to 10, 12.
I don't think they've ever gone to Melbourne before. I don't know if they've ever gone to Australia, period. But
interesting. Okay.
yeah, usually they will do some like more regional travel at the beginning.
It's funny you mentioned that, because obviously the show has a budget. You would think ABC would have a massive budget, though over the years I have noticed that I have called them out on the last several shows, being like, where are you using your budget? Because they've done weird things over the seasons I've watched. And as we were watching this, we got a shot at the men's buffet and the cocktail hour. And I just looked at you and I was really like, what? Get these guys 25 strapping lads, and it's like a little card table worth of like kebabs.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you feel like? Come on, like, can we get some budget? And so clearly the budget was used on the Australia trip.
Yeah, for 19 people plus crew.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 19 people, but 20 with Jesse, plus all the crew. Mm-hmm. Clearly, that is why these men could not get a decent, and they're all night long. They got like 2 kebabs a piece on a fucking card table. It was pathetic. I felt bad for them. I was ready to go and bring them a pizza. Okay, it was that bad.
Yeah, that was really sad.
Yeah. Also, high in my Rose and Thorn running today was the sad little buffet. Yeah.
Well, is that where we're at? Are we at Rose and Thorn?
I think we're there, unless there's anything else you want to cover.
No. But again, we know this was a jam-packed episode. There was a lot. So if there was something that we missed that you wish that we talked about, or someone that you wish that we talked about, please drop it in the comments below. We will hop on and give you our thoughts always.
Yeah. All right. Rose and Thorn?
Yeah.
I'm happy you asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that.
I mean, you've been previewing your roses and thorns all night. What do you got?
Man, oh man. So for roses, like I said, I liked Marcus a lot. I really loved the way Jesse got used as a prop. I would say that, that's I'm gonna go with that's my rose.
Jesse?
Jesse being involved in the episode in a way that we typically don't see him involved in the episode, I found entertaining. And just really enjoyable. And so I was all in on that. He's such a good host in a way that I would never expect that he would be or should be.
Yeah.
He's really stepped up, and we keep saying it. He's great. So, what about you? What's your rose?
Let's see. I think I'm sort of surprising myself with this, but it brought me some joy. 2 things. One, speaking of Jesse, there was just something so grounding about hearing him say, "Let the journey begin." And gentlemen, this is the final rose of the evening. Like, it was just so like, we are back. So I liked that. But as a maybe a rosebud, Something that I actually, or someone that I actually really enjoyed paying attention to was Hakeem.
Those eyes.
He-
I mean, when his
he
eyes
was
get
so
big,
expressive.
oh my God.
And so
I was like,
there
dude,
was,
they're going to pop right out of your head.
I
Just,
mean,
you
I
know.
have big eyes, so I mean, I can't say anything. But I just really loved watching him kind of in the background, watching his reactions to things. I thought that was really fun. Seeing him with the balloons, I mean, just pure chaos at the beginning with them popping everywhere. I mean,
He was a balloon guy. That's right.
so
Yeah.
I just, it was like getting bloopers without bloopers. So I liked that as well for my rose.
Yeah. And your thorn.
I think my thorn, I might get crucified for this. I just didn't love the way Jen showed up.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
There was just something flat, like something missing, something.
It's funny that you say flat. My experience of her this episode was like a high school teenager. She was so it was so childish and immature.
Well,
in
I guess
the entire
what I mean,
tone of the episode.
what I mean by flat isn't energy. I mean depth. Like,
oh yeah, no, it felt like a high schooler.
Yeah.
There was no depth. It was just a bunch of bubbly nonsense.
And listen, it was
Surface
the first
level.
episode. Let's hail to King Joey here. Joey you called him robotic for the
Very
first,
robotic, yeah.
several episodes.
All the episodes, yeah.
And so
also
like
a crybaby, but that's beside.
I loved Joey, and so I'm going to give Jen the same benefit of the doubt that I gave Joey, which is she's just getting her feet wet. Yeah, just getting used to it. I'm sure we'll see a little bit more of her come out, but I was just like, like I really, really, really want to like her and this season, and it left me feeling like I wanted more, and and not in a good way.
No, I sympathize with that because I agree. I was hoping for more. Like I said at the top of the episode, I don't think that this increased her standing in my mind. There were just a lot of things that happened where it was just like, okay, I was hoping for a little bit more depth. I was hoping for a little more maturity. The fact that she's constantly like she's all in on getting complimented. There's just passing back and forth of a whole lot of cliches. Mm-hmm. It just feels like when you're coming off of Golden Bachelor, where we got real conversations, and then you had Joey season, where yes, Joey was robotic, and I had plenty of criticisms for him. He actually did drive great conversations, and there was meaning in what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Even if he was a bit, performative and robotic and whatnot in the process, like you saw the genuineness and you saw maturity to his process. And Jen's not there yet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hope we get there. Mm-hmm. I have my concerns, but like but you know what? It's going to be an entertaining season no matter what.
For sure.
I mean, the guys alone are going to be pretty entertaining, I think. Yeah.
So what's your thorn?
Okay, everybody. My thorn. It's real talk time. Okay. Real talk. Last week, I if you all recall, I came on this podcast and I was telling you about a grave deception by my co-host. Okay. And I just have to say, I can't even look at her. I just have to say that the deception goes further than I realized. And I'm deeply wounded and hurt by it. And I just need everyone to know just how much I was a victim of this deception. So, as you all know, last week I said, the bear is out. Perhaps we could just audible this Jen Tran season away, and we could just do a review of the bear instead. And this one over here was like, we are doing The Bachelorette. No discussion. Period. Guess what I found out this past Tuesday? There was a reason that this one didn't want to do the bear. Do you know why? Because she already had a review of the bear. she had her review of The Bear put in USA Today for her interview. She didn't want to do the Bear review with me because she already had the review.
Wait, can I tell you something else that you might not also know?
There's more deception?
Not only did we have the interview with USA Today about our therapist takes, but Catherine and I recorded a bonus episode of Reactivity TV, 2 therapists giving our takes on season 3 of The Bear, which will be dropping maybe even before this episode comes out. Sorry, you asked for it. You said Catherine can do it.
There it is, people. The thorn of the week. I was cut out of The Bear. We could be talking about The Bear right now. Instead, we're talking about this train wreck of a season 21.
Okay. I love the revisionist history here, because let us not forget the beginning of this podcast where Chris comes on and he says how excited he is to talk about everything. He's wearing purple for Jen's season. He specifically was in his section of the closet and was like,
section of the closet, my one drawer.
I'm wearing purple tonight because it's Jen's color for the season, right? So
I thought it would be appropriate.
Who's the deceiver? It's you.
No, I'm sorry.
You are deceiving the American people.
And
Canadians.
27% Canadians, right? Come on. The Canadians are on my side. I just want to point that out. Anyway, so all kidding aside, I will post a link. I'm very proud of you. You and Catherine, were interviewed by USA Today to do a Bear recap review discussing it. So we'll post that in the comments, or rather in the show notes, and also with the two of you's actual Bear review for this channel. We'll put it in there as well for those of you who care. But it's actually really cool, and I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
And so yeah, so that's a thing that happened. I think it came out on like Thursday. Was it Thursday? Friday. Yeah. So anyway, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
One last thing, very importantly, that we didn't say at the top because you were so excited to get into this episode.
I was distraught.
Is that we are still having this goal to hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you're notified anytime new stuff drops on this channel. If you are subscribed and you like what you see, share this podcast with a friend, get them to subscribe. Any little bit that you can do helps and is so appreciated.
Yeah. I got nothing to add. You said my part too.
Oh yeah, hit that bell. Okay.
Yeah. Smash that bell icon, hit that bell icon, tap it, tweak it.
It's midnight, you guys. We're trying. Other things to note, if you really love us and want to stay tuned and follow along, you can also follow us on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can send us any emails with feedback, suggestions, anything you'd like to reactivitytv at revivecfw.com. You can follow along with me on Instagram at Amy Albero LCSW. You can also check out our other podcast, Wishing You Well. It's Wishing You Well Pod on Instagram, Wishing You Well by Reactivity TV on YouTube. And this week, because we have our inaugural Reactivity TV episode for Jen's season, Catherine, my co-host there, interviewed Chris and I about our relationship, because who the heck are we to be giving our, therapist and, husband opinion on relationships? So she interviewed us about our relationship.
Is that what we were doing?
That's what we talked about.
Oh.
So if you're curious, we'll also drop that link in the show notes too, so you can learn a little bit more about us. Okay. I think that really is it.
Sounds good. It's midnight.
It's midnight. All right. We will see you next week for episode 2 of Jen's season of The Bachelorette. Thank you for being here with us. We'll see you then. Bye.
See ya.